Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Journey to Overflow. I know it has been a good minute since I have come to y'all with a new episode. Life has been lifing for your girl, but it has not been bad. It has all been exciting, great news. And I just needed some time of a hiatus to just kind of process with God of what this new normal will look like as things are wrapping up. Things are changing, things are beginning. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for what God has in store, even down to the podcast. There's certain things that I'm still talking with God about. Is this background going to look the same? Is it going to be different? I don't know. So I mean, I had to take a little break, but I didn't want to leave y'all with a cliffhanger, but I really wanted to finish out this season strong and continue to follow what the Lord has given me as He is still giving me creative ideas of what to talk to y'all about. So today specifically, we'll be talking about Ruth and Boaz because still at the core of me, I'm still a relationship girl. I'm still tapping into the save single healing, but more of having an evolved perspective on things that I may didn't have at the time, and how because God continues to give you new revelation, even in texts that you may have known all your lives. He continues to give new revelation. That's why you find some people who read the Bible front to back every year faithfully, because the Lord gives new revelation. So my question for you is, has Ruth and Boaz's story become a romanticized fantasy for people? Or are we still holding on to the context of truly what Ruth's story was about that just happened to have Boaz? Let's find out. So I took a deep dive and rewatched the movie Ruth and Boaz on Netflix. And I love the movie. I think it was a great way to set the tone, especially because you find it on social media about, oh, I can't wait to get my Boaz. I can't wait to find my Proverbs 31 woman. I can't wait to find my Ruth, my Ephesians 5 man, all the things. And especially when it comes to women, we always be like, oh, give me my Boaz, Lord. I can't wait to find him. But was that really the context of that story? And so I believe the movie did a good job, and especially if you don't have the full knowledge of, or you're a new believer coming into knowing Jesus Christ and understanding what that walk looks like, what the journey of these people's lives in the Bible looked like. And so I believe it did a, a purpose to kind of give a general overview of the story, but still add in a romantic touch to grasp people's attention. So I do believe that that was good. However, I believe we have romanticized this story so much that we've actually diverted from the true context. Their story wasn't so much a love story, but a part of God's master plan. And this story was mainly about Ruth that happened to have Boaz a part of the story because it was bringing in, continuing the lineage to get to Jesus Christ. Because Ruth and Boaz's son, Obed, whom they gave back to Naomi, birthed Jesse. Then Jesse birthed David. And then the lineage keeps going. If you want to know more about this lineage, you can read Matthew 1, and it goes down through all the way from Abraham all the way down. It gives the whole 9 yards of that lineage, because even though Jesus was born of a virgin woman, Mary, he still was raised, and his father was the Father, God the Father. He was still raised by a human that was of the lineage of David, which in turns is the lineage of Ruth and Boaz. So whether our relationships are platonic or romantic, God has a master plan. We don't do anything on this earth that God has not orchestrated, because everything we do should glorify him. We see it in Abraham and Sarah's story. They literally had Isaac in their 90s, close to 100. They had him late in years, to where Sarah laughed. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Even Abraham doubted, but he doubted himself. He didn't doubt God. He just doubted himself. Like, how is my body going to produce a child? How is my wife going to produce a child in her old age? But the Lord is a miracle worker. He can do all things. But we also see it with David and Bathsheba. We know that story. It's a little toxic. Of course, David took Bathsheba from her husband, slept with her, then killed her husband. But in turn, they stayed together. They had their first kid. First child died. But then they had Solomon. So, once again, God can use all things, whether it's romantic or platonic relationships, friendships, all the things. Their story wasn't just a love story. Like, their lives wasn't just a love story, but it was a responsibility that God had given them. And it wasn't by fate, like people try to call it. It wasn't by fate that they just happened to meet. No, it was divine destiny, collided destiny that happened. Purpose was fulfilled in this moment. It was through mantle, a calling on their lives that God had already knew would happen before they were even born. So Ruth was a Moabitess and Boaz was a Jew. But this was to start tying in what Jesus would come to do. And so understand that even though in the Old Testament, the Israelites were God's chosen people, the Lord, our Father, wanted to save all of his children. All of us are his children. Whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, we're all his children. So just because somebody agrees with certain things, they may not always be with you. That doesn't mean they're always good for you. Some people in your space may not be good for you, because some things that they may be agreeing with may be of a toxic trait of yours versus something that needs to be healed and restored. So watch who you, be mindful who you have in your space. But all this to say is that even though it was taboo, so to speak, during this time, it was leading to where Jesus would fulfill, of all of us being united by faith. So to give a little backstory, Ruth was the daughter-in-law of Naomi. Naomi was a widow. Her husband had passed away. Her two sons had passed away. And she told her daughter-in-laws, Naomi and Oprah, y'all need to just go back to your families, because, hold on, let me back up a little bit more. So Naomi left. She left Jerusalem because of the famine. She didn't stay. Her and her family, her husband and her two sons, they decided to leave. They're like, we need to go somewhere else where we would be sustained. We're not going to be sustained in this famine. So they left. They went to Moab, which is how her two sons started dating and married a Moabite woman. So in this, after, these are years later, Her husband is deceased. Her two sons are deceased. So she tells her two daughter-in-laws, hey, go back to your families. I'm going to be all right. I'm going back to my hometown at this point. There's nothing here for me either. I have a home there, but let me just go. Let me go back and y'all go back to y'all's family. At first, neither one of them was like, we're not going to leave you. We're not going to leave you. But after Naomi kept pressing, Oprah was like, all right, well, bet. I'm going back to my family. Peace out. I'm out. Ruth, on the other hand, was like, no, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving you. In verse 16, it says, but Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Verse 17, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. Verse 18, when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. This is in chapter 1. Your God will be my God. I'm going wherever you go. And that's exactly what happened. But then we see in chapter 2 that they had to start from scratch. All the money was gone. They barely had anything, even food to eat. So Ruth is like, hey, in verse 2, and Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. Don't discredit humble beginnings of a person. Do not discredit humble beginnings of a person. Because in verse 3, so she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. There we go. Thank you, Holy Spirit. We're going to keep going. We're going to go to verse 5. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you, and the Lord bless you, they called back. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, whose young woman is that? The foreman replied, she is the Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi. So she asked them, she said, hey, can I please glean? She didn't just go out there stealing stuff. She asked. And so that's why I said, don't discredit humble beginnings of a person. Because mind you, Boaz was wealthy. He was handsome and wealthy. Okay. He was well off. But because she decided to follow her mother-in-law and be in a fresh city where she didn't know anyone and they had to start from ground up, she had to glean what the harvesters dropped. And so sometimes we be saying, oh, my person got to make 6 figures. They got to be driving a Maserati. They need a huge house off the back. No, they don't. As much as I would, this is the question. I'm going to ask this. Are you making 6 figures? The person you were asking for, are you doing the same? Everything that is on your list, are you that? Now, there will be some things that maybe your partner has that they can teach you with or help you grow in. All the good things. Help me. But are you the person that you're asking for? Because if you don't have half of this stuff, then how you expect them to have this? And then the other part of this, that's material things. That is material things. I want longevity. I want generational wealth. I don't want just simple wealth of like a Maserati. Number one, a Maserati is a depreciated value. It is a depreciated value. The moment you drive it off the lot, that value go down. It goes straight down. It's not even like you can't, when you give it back, when you sell it back, it's going to be worth less than what you bought it for. Now, on the other end, I'm very big in paintings, art, all those things, sculptures, different things like that. Now, I'm not saying my person has to have that, but it's a nice touch because I know that you're thinking long term. You're thinking investments that will bring us more money later on than what it was worth. Paintings, sculptures, all those things, those are appreciated values. They go up in price over time. Why do you think a lot of people auction off paintings and stuff? And people buy them because I know it'll be worth more than what I bought it for. The other thing, a huge house. Even though you can place equity in a house, who gonna clean up all that house? You gonna clean up all that house? Cause let me tell you something. I got a nice size house, and this is a lot of house to clean. Okay, so just don't discredit someone because maybe they don't have what's on your list. And is your list something that will increase over time, or is it something that's just materialistic that you can't take with you when you die? It ain't worth it. Because this is the thing. Some people who have money are not good. They are not good on the inside. They are very ugly on the inside. And I can speak from experience because I've dated people who was ugly on the inside. And they had money. They had the nice cars. They had the big house. But those were also the ones that was treating me like crap, cheating on me, doing all the things. So check the heart before you check the pocket. So instead of Ruth complaining and being like, Naomi, you set me up. I thought you had money. I thought you had this. Like, I thought you was well off. You didn't send me here. I done came here with you. Now we got to figure out how we going to eat, how we going to survive. But no, she didn't do that. She said, hey, I'm going to go out and see if I can pick up the grain. And she didn't sit around waiting for no grand employment. No, she decided to humble herself for the sake of feeding herself and her mother-in-law who was older. In her humility, the Lord granted her providence. Providence means divine guidance or care. God conceived as the power sustaining and guiding human destiny. The Lord granted her providence because of her humility. In Proverbs, it literally says, before honor comes humility. The only way up is down. You have to bow to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And sometimes you have to be in seasons of humility. I just came out of a big one. Oh my gosh. This was the hardest season. Well, for right now. In this mindset, in this stage that I'm in, looked like the hardest season of humility. And so he granted her this because she had a hard working spirit that wasn't just to benefit her physically, but spiritually. It's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish. Even though she started in a humble beginnings of literally grabbing the grain that the harvesters dropped, it was setting her up. Because I'm pretty sure there had been other people who had probably done the same thing, had probably asked, maybe didn't ask. But Boaz was interested, like, who is this woman? I've never seen this woman before. This somebody new. If you from a small town or you from a big city like me, but all the black people know each other, especially if your family is from there and they like, oh, who you related to? That's what I'm saying. You're going to be like, who this person? I ain't never seen you before. Okay, yeah, you're not from here. Got it. That makes sense. That's how this was. But it was God ordained for her to just happen to go to his farm out of probably a whole bunch of other farms that was there, fields that was there, just so her purpose and destiny could come to fulfillment. So in an episode of A Different World, I love this show, where Whitley told Dwayne, a man with a plan for the future is never broke. Because he was like, because Whitley was, she was that girl. Okay, she was that girl. She was a legacy at Hillman. You know, her parents was well off. She wore Chanel. She dined at the finest places. Always had the nicest jewelry, nice car, all the things. Whereas Dwayne Wade, on the other hand, he was broke. He was a goofy freshman, a college student, but had a plan, a goal. He knew what he was going to school for, which was engineer. And so he thought, like, oh, you only think about the man with money. And she was like, a man with a plan is never broke. That type of man ain't never broke. And it's true, because sometimes you'll find people who talk a good game, but they really not living up to that game, or like are broke, or maybe have money, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to invest it. They don't know that they just splurge and do weird stuff with their money and different things. But she literally was like, and she probably had dated some of those people, but she was like, you have a plan. You know that you don't want to be in poverty. You know that you want to be well off. You know that you want to have generational health, wealth, all the things. And she was like, that man is never broke. Because also, guess what? Our riches are not found in the things of this world, but it's found in God. He is our riches and glory. He gives us our riches and glory. So the items that you're looking for, those are bare minimum. And don't be so stuck on a list. They may not look. They may not have what you're looking for right now. But check the heart. Because now we're about to go into Boaz. Boaz was a mighty man of wealth. He was a man of valor who happened to have money. Valor means a strength of mind or spirit that enables a person to encounter danger with firmness, personal bravery. So he was equipped, he was brave, he was strong, but he wasn't strong in himself. He was strong in God, because he was rich in the world and rich in God, like I said earlier. He was rich in his faith, and he was rich in his good works. He could have said, get her off my field. I don't know this lady, and she from Moab. Get her off this field. But no, he was like, okay. When you allow God to order your steps, like he did Ruth's, by leading her into Boaz's field, you will find and receive companionship, protection, and refreshment. And that's not just in a person, that's in the Lord. Are you in good relationship with God before you try to get into a relationship and friendship with people? Because people are going to make mistakes. They're humans. They're not perfect. They're imperfect beings willing to grow. Should be. Now, you do have some people who they imperfect and they like being imperfect and they don't want to change, and they say growth is is not for them. But you have some people who know they're imperfect and they're willing to grow in God when God convicts them, when God corrects them. And so your companionship, your protection, and your refreshment first comes from God. And so Ruth was getting a human taste in that moment of who God was, because we're supposed to shine his light on earth in dark spaces. And so that's what Boaz was doing for Ruth. In verses 8 and 9, in the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned and discovered a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I am your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer. So, of course, I know, because that's in verse 3. I know it feels like I'm skipping around, but I would highly suggest and admonish you to go read the book of Ruth. It's only 4 chapters. At this point, she's excited. After he asks who she is, he says, hey, not only did he let her come eat with them at the table, because he could have said, hey, get off my land, but he didn't. He let her come eat, and she didn't want to seem too greedy, so she actually put some of it in her pocket to have enough for her and her mother-in-law later on. But not only that, he told his harvesters, hey, purposefully drop grain so that she can come and get it. after you. That's an humbling position to have. And sometimes that could, sometimes people could be like, I'm not out charity case. I'm not out charity case. Let me tell you something. If the Lord allows somebody to bless me, I learn to not knock my blessings. And I learn to not only to take the blessings when somebody's giving it to me, but also to be a blessing to somebody. And that's what Boaz was trying to do. But I don't never, like my mama always say when she gives somebody something or whatever, she be like, don't knock my blessing. Because it's not about charity. It's just what the Lord imparted on her heart, just like he did for Boaz in that moment. And so she in 8, verse 8 and 9, this is after all of that happens, and she goes back and she tells Naomi, I'm so excited of all the things that happened for me today. And guess what? She didn't know that they were related. She's like, hey, I got to be on this man's field. His name is Boaz. He's the son of Elimelech. And she's like, oh, that's actually a relative of ours. Yeah. He's actually our kinsman redeemer. And so she said, hey, this is what I want you to do. At nighttime, after he's done eating, because let the man eat. After he's done eating, I want you to go lay by his feet. But before you do all of that, hey, girl, go wash up. Because you want to be fresh and clean. You want to smell good. Want to smell good for the man of God. Okay? Don't be stinky. Ugh, that's gross. Men and women, don't be stinky. Ugh. Don't come talk to me. If your breath stink, if your underarm stink, make sure you fresh all the way around. That's unattractive. And that's a big turn off. You may be the cutest thing, but oof, if that hygiene is off, it's a wrap. But anyway, she told her, wash and perfume yourself. Put on your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he is finished eating and drinking. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. So that's exactly what she did. She went and she was in that moment in verse 8 and 9 in chapter 3. She's literally laying at his feet. And that's what we do with God. We are to lay at his feet for instructions. Because you know how she said, and then he will tell you what to do. Next, he will tell you what to do. Before you could ever get a man or a woman, are you really at the feet of God asking God, what is in me that needs to grow, be dismantled, be stripped? And God, who do you have for me? Because sometimes he may tell you, but sometimes he will continuously reveal himself in those moments, and then you'll start to pick it up when that person comes. And that person will come when you least expect it. Just like in this situation, they weren't looking at each other like that. Maybe at the point when they was at the table, a little spark started to happen. Like, okay, he cute, she cute, okay. But they weren't looking at each other like that. She was just thankful and grateful that he saw enough of her to be like, hey, go ahead and get what you need. And that's how God is with us. He's like, get what you need. I know your flaws. I know all your issues. I know what you're going to do tomorrow. But hey, come to me and lay at my feet, and I will give you what you need. This comes when you focus on how God treats you. So when that person comes, when that Boaz comes, my ladies, when that Boaz comes, he's going to treat you the way that God treats you. But let me tell you something, even in that, I'll never forget, I was having a conversation with my cousins when I went back to my hometown. And I told them, I said, hey, this person is good. I love him dearly. I said, but it ain't nothing like the love of God. That love that God gives me, oh, it's so unconditional. Oh, my Lord. As much as I love this person, that love I will take any day. Not to say that that person won't give you that love. Because God, that's what will come out. But remember, they're still human. So they're still going to make mistakes. But you make mistakes and God still love you. And so when you focus on how God treats you as his daughter, as his friend, as his chosen one. You won't look at how the world labels Boaz, but you'll see that Boaz, even though he's human, I'll know when it's from God and when it's just another person looking like a Boaz, because I'm so hungry and thirsty for a Boaz. And I put that in quotation marks because I think that's why I put that on there. Boaz was a mighty man of wealth. His heart was knitted to God, who just happened to be wealthy. And so, how are you being covered? How are you being covered? Are you being covered? Are they covering you in prayer? Are they covering you in physical situations? Are they covering you from things, dangers that they see that you don't see? Because the Lord does that. He covers you. Your clothes, like the shame that you feel is covered. And it's not from a place of masking, because the Lord unmasks. He doesn't want you to be masked up. But it's a place of like, I know what you did, and me and you are going to work through that. But I'm going to cover you to the point of where it's dismissed off of you. Like it's off of you because you're so covered in me that all they can see is me. So are you being covered? We want the accolades of a person, but how are they to your spirit? How are they to your spirit? Are you satisfied, or does it feel like something's missing? For me, I'll tell you this. It was always like, this person is cool and da 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 and gotta and this and this and this. But, girl, this person is like, yes, period. Clock it all the way, right? But, girl, this person got everything on my list. But if anybody you are talking to, this is for everybody. It's not just for women. It's for everybody. Anybody you are talking to, even like I said, even in friendships, if there is a but at the end of that statement, 9 times out of 10, they not good for your spirit. Now, I will say some of us have a good cutoff. Okay, it ain't nothing good that. Yeah, some of us have a good cutoff game. Now you can't be that way. You gotta ask the Lord. Cause I was that way too. Let me tell you something. I can cut you off in a quick minute. But I've come to realize that I cannot do that. Because some of the buts may not be coming from my spirit, but maybe just because we had a disagreement and you ain't on my side and I don't like that. And that's all the way in my flesh. Okay. That's an emotional feeling that I'm having right now, which is valid, but at the same time, not deep enough for me to cut somebody off. But if it doesn't feel good to your spirit and you're like, but you may want to back away from that. You may want to back away from that because it's not good for you. That means it's going to lead somewhere that you start compromising, that you start doubting yourself, that you start doing things that you probably wouldn't normally do. Just leave that alone. Leave it alone. Just leave it alone. So in verse 12, which is when I was asking about the covering, are you being covered? In verse 12, he says, although it is true that I am a near of kin, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem, good, let him redeem. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until the morning. So regardless, she was going to be redeemed. That's how the Lord is. He said, hey, even if that person, because it's someone that's a little bit more in depth with that than I am. But hey, if they don't do it, I'm willing to do it. I am willing to do it. That's how God is with us. He's always willing. Even when we don't see it, he's always willing and able to do it, and he does do it. Boaz covered Ruth, and not from a place of trying to get with her. He wasn't just trying to get with her, But he saw that her heart posture in serving God and fulfilling her pledge to Naomi, he loved that. Like, hey, you love your mother in law so much that you left your own town to come and finish taking care of her. That's different. God will give you all that you need in the right moment when you follow him. You have to follow him. He will give you all that you need. You will not lack anything. The person God has created for you will not only meet you where you are, but push you to greatness. So he met her where she was. Boaz met Ruth where she was. A Moabitess woman just picking up leftover grain. So now he's like, hey, if that person don't do it for you, I will do it for you. I'm going to push you to greatness so that you and your mother-in-law don't have to worry for a thing. That is beautiful. In verse 15 and 16, he also said, bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out. When she did, so he poured into it 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Verse 18, then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. After finding out who she was, Boaz didn't just give her grain, but he gave her more than enough. So although their story was only written in 4 chapters, their love story didn't happen overnight. And so he didn't just give her companionship as she laid at his feet, but he protected her by covering her. She felt secure, like I mentioned earlier. And that refreshment was him redeeming their family name through their love story. He was her security, but not just hers, Naomi's. Security in Hebrew meant rest. Home should be a place of rest and security, and he was home for her. You know how Luther Vandross says, a chair is not a chair when there's no one sitting there, and a house is not a home. I can't remember all the lyrics, but you get the gist of it. Like, you can be in a house, but if it doesn't feel like a home, if there's no peace, there's no security, there's no protection. So in chapter 4, as we come to a close, it goes, meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along, Boaz said, come over here, my friend, and sit down. So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, sit here. And they did. So then he said to the kinsman redeemer, Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to her brother Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line. I will redeem it, he said. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth, the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. As this, the kinsman redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. So as you go down to verse 9 in chapter 4, then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I've also acquired Ruth, the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today, you are witnesses. So, as you can see, the other man wasn't willing to do it because he said, hey, that's going to mess up my own stuff. So Boaz kept his word. Does the people you talk to keep their word? God does. That's why I keep gearing it back that way, because for me, I had to learn how to be with God before anything else comes. I have to learn how to be with God. So let's not be so in a rush because you don't know. Because guess what? A kinsman redeemer is a person responsible to safeguard the person, the property, and the posterity of the family. These protections show how important it was for God to preserve families. And sometimes we get into these things with people that we really don't know because we want this thing so bad that we come into contact with people and they were really ready to throw up the towel, including myself, which is why the Lord has me sitting still, because I can't do that. Because he's like, I'm preserving families. I want kingdom families again. I want kingdom marriages again. Are y'all rooted individually with God so that you can be rooted together with God? The person who you choose to be your forever is not just for you, but for the generations coming behind. Do you want generational curses to keep going? Or do you want to bring back kingdom families? As Boaz was her human redeemer, Ruth first had to submit. You have to submit. And I'm learning that because I have to come under the mission of God more than anything. I have a previous episode talking about submission, that it's not the way the world gives it, but it's coming under submission to God's will and purpose. And it's not a weak trait to have. It's actually strong. It's very strong to be. Because as humans, we can become prideful very quickly. We can come prideful very fast. But like I said, humility comes before honor. But make sure you're submitting to God. If you are dating, make sure you're submitting to God, sitting with God about the person and not like, oh Lord, is this the person? But God, with this person, will I be submitted to your will? Will I be submitted to your plan? Will I grow in favor? Will I grow in faith? Will I grow in what you're calling me to? Or will this be a distraction holding me back? Ruth's act of obedience by going with Naomi, number one, by saying, I'm going to go out and find work. I'm going to go out and glean the barley, the grain that has been dropped. I'm going to humble myself and do that. And then I'm going to be obedient in laying at the threshing floor of Boaz's feet. Because if you like me and you don't like feet, that's nasty. But when I humble myself before my Father, before my friend, before my confidant, before my Redeemer, God is the ultimate Redeemer. When I lay at his feet, I'm giving instructions on how to submit to his plan. But it also shows, God, that I respect you, I trust you, and I place my life in your hands. So Boaz marries Ruth. And not only does he marry Ruth, but then they have a son, Obed, which is a part of the ultimate plan of God, because it was to redeem Naomi. Because guess what? They gave the son to Naomi. So I'll just go down from verse 13 to 16. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. Then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. So companionship, protection, refreshment. That is all found. That is the main context of the story of Ruth and Boaz. But all of that can be found in your relationship with the source of your life, which is Jesus Christ. That is who gives you companionship, protection, refreshment. And so now we go on to the deep word, the deep word, the deep word, the deep word. Now we on to the deep word, the deep word, the deep word, the deep word. So my deep word for you today is pretty lengthy. It's not a typical statement. But before being with anyone, understand that Jesus is our ultimate redeemer. He knows all about us, yet he still safeguards us. Ruth laying at the feet of Boaz is how we should be with God at all times, all times. Sometimes we get so caught up in the trends from culture that we miss the meaning behind this book of Ruth. It becomes more of a romanticization than the mighty hand of God consistently moving in our lives. Boaz was a man of valor, but Ruth was a woman of virtue. Because of their obedience, their lives was forever transformed and redefined by God. And that's a word and a word and a word. All right, I will see y'all next episode. I pray that y'all have a good week. I pray that this episode blesses you, and I will see you next time. Love y'all.